Well, hello. I am Rahti Gorfine of Creative Calling Coaching. For those who may not know me, I am a career and life coach for adults and creatives with focus problems. And what I do is I help people find their own strengths for overcoming obstacles that might be dealt more easily with by other people, but your own brain wiring, if you understand it, is a superpower. So I help my clients focus so they can grab the focus of others, get seen, and make money doing what they love. And since we've all come into our period of quarantine here, I've been doing these coping live streams twice a week, centered around a very interesting tool. Do I have it nearby? Not nearby enough, but anyways, it's a deck of Kabbalah cards. The Kabbalah is a mystic discipline in the Jewish tradition, uh, a tool for spiritual development. And these Kabbalah cards are made up of all the letters of the Hebrew alphabet and what are called the Sephiro of the tree of life. That Sephiro is plural, Sephira singular, and basically each Sephiro is some form of divine energy. So that's been a lot of fun. And today's is really interesting because there's been some crossover with another resource that I've been dipping into. Uh, I was gifted this by someone very recently, and it is written by Julia Cameron. It is called Artist's Way Every Day, and it is fashioned a little bit like, I don't know if you're familiar with these Hazelton publications, Day by Day. If you're in a 12-step program, every day is a different, for every date of the year, like August 18th. Interesting, August 18th is about coping, adjusting and coping. There is some wisdom you can meditate upon. And so it's designed very much like that. And today's Hebrew letter, I'll read you this passage in a minute, but today's Hebrew letter is Samech. Samech, which as you can see is a closed letter. And the connotations of it have to do with protection, which is interesting in the time of COVID, in the time of quarantine, where we are all enclosed because we have to protect ourselves and others. We are inside, most of the time. So I thought that was rather resonant. It is protection, though, as it pertains to your emotional and spiritual life. So then I pick up Julia's book and I go to August 18th and I read, "The act of making art requires sensitivity, and when we cultivate sufficient sensitivity for our art, we often find that the tumult of life takes a very high toll on our psyches. We become overwrought and overtired. Our energies are drained not by coping with our output of creative energy, but from coping with the ceaseless inflow of distractions and distresses that bid for our time, attention, and emotional involvement." So this passage to me really speaks to the need for protection of our attention, protection of our emotional energies, and so forth. As artists, we are great listeners, and as the volume is pitched too high, our inner ear and our inner work suffers. We can't hear ourselves think. We can't tune in to our own instincts and inclinations. where did I go? I lost my place. Oh, here it is. Our inflow level must be kept manageable, and we must train our friends and family and colleagues at work when and how we need our space, both physical and psychic. This may mean no calls in the morning before 11, or voicemail calls returned every day after 3. It may mean patience, no contact on demand. So yes, we have to create boundaries around our attention, which is something that I work on ceaselessly with my clients. As far as phones go, I like to say, uh, you know, they guarantee access, but they do not guarantee availability. No one is entitled to your constant availability. Ergo, I rarely answer my phone in real time. Because if I'm in the middle of something, I'm not going to shrapnelize my focus by answering the phone. All right. So again, today's theme, if you haven't figured out, is protection. Hi, Mary. I got a couple people watching, and that always makes me happy. So I want to get back to exploring and studying Samech a little more here. You see, it's a closed round letter, as I said, and it connotes divine support and protection. The idea is that a higher power helps our missions on Earth, no matter how apparently mundane they may seem. For instance, the idea is that hidden within our daily routines is an unseen reality. Every moment matters, including this one, as the Dove chocolate wrapper says. This letter, the S sound of Samech, begins the word Sephiro, or Sephirah, singular, the forms of divine energy that permeate our cosmos. And it also begins the Hebrew word for secret, or sod. Samech alludes to concealed worlds around us, as I mentioned. And according to the sages, humans' existence is a mystery that ultimately only revelation can illuminate. And how do we arrive at revelation? Attention. Paying attention. So I've found the idea of protection and secrets very interesting in talking about this letter. Sometimes people come to me and they're experiencing creative blockages of one kind or another. And when I say creative, I mean resourceful. People are creative no matter what they do for a living. Creativity to me is the act of making something where there wasn't something before. And to do that, you need to be resourceful. So plenty of my clients are entrepreneurs. Some of them are data analysts. I mean, I've got all sorts of people who come to work with me who need to tap into their creativity, aka their resourcefulness. And sometimes they come to me completely shut down because they have let someone into their secret garden, as my coach likes to put it. You have to be very careful when you are first nurturing an idea or an inspiration. The first few pages of the first draft of that book, you have to be very protective of who you allow into that nascent world, that barely becomed world, lest the wrong person stomp all over your secret garden with their yes buts and their protective doubts. And sometimes, because we confuse what we want with what we need, We sometimes think we want to invite people into our secret garden because they're people we need the approval of. And even that need is probably illegitimate on some level. We basically bare our throats inappropriately. Okay. If you're going to show somebody the very beginnings of your work, you have to make sure it's somebody who knows what they're looking at. They're not going to compare it to a Broadway show when you've just been working on a little sketch, right? Protectiveness, Samech. You want to protect that little creative world. And another way to protect it is to be careful of comparing what you're working on to other things you may come across out in the world. Compare and despair, which I'm sure everyone is very familiar with. You know, it's now people talk about doing research and looking at books. I mean, we have to do market research, okay? So if you're working on an idea for a business, for example, you do have to do some market research in order to distinguish what you're trying to do from what has already been done in order to interest investors, for instance, and also in order to solve a problem that has not already been solved. But that is very different than looking at the marketplace and throwing your hands up in despair right away and saying, oh, they already did it. And they did it better. Not better. Now, perhaps they did. But at the same time, for instance, as a coach, if I were to say, oh, I just found another coach's website. Somebody already did it. That'd be pretty ridiculous. And that actually goes for a lot of things. There are iterations of things that may serve one market better than another market. Okay. So you have to watch out for that compare and despair. And in lieu of that, I think you have to risk fleshing out an idea in solitude before you even share it, right, with anybody but your coach, let's say, and start comparing it against things that are fully developed out in the marketplace. All right. So Samech is about protection and knowing where you need protection. It is about being well boundaried. As you can see, it looks like a little moat, doesn't it, around this open space of potential, which is what each and every one of us is. Pure potential, an open space of potential that you want to protect. I don't care what your age is. You are potential. And if you don't have the appropriate boundaries, people can move in on that potential and you can squander it. So y'all, don't be casting your pearls before swine is the bottom line. Protect your work, protect yourself, protect your energy, right? I'm not talking about paranoia. I'm talking about knowing where you end and someone else begins, and recognizing who is for you and who is for themselves, quite frankly. All right. And wants to mold you in their image, or perhaps is somebody who doesn't have a lot going on for themselves and is looking for something to copy. Right? We're treading a little bit of a fine line here because I really don't think that anybody can be ripped off permanently, if you know what I mean. Nobody can do something the way you would do it. Okay. And I don't like to foster paranoia because sometimes people don't do their work or manifest their ideas, not just because they're afraid of criticism, but because they're afraid of being ripped off. Well, one way to ensure that you won't get ripped off is by not making something, not making it happen, until, of course, the day you turn around and see that somebody else did. So that was fun. That was a fun little rant. I hope you enjoyed that. I always assume that a letter that I pull from the deck is meant to be pulled from the deck. And I have to say, Julia Cameron really affirmed that for me today. I'll be here again on Thursday. And call to action, you know where to find me. Private message me. I'm always happy to talk. If you'd like to explore how coaching might help you move to the next level in your career and your life, I'm here on Facebook. You know where to find me. Have a great couple of next days, and I'll see you Thursday. Bye-bye.